Deadpool and Wolverine, Aliens and Predator, X-Men and Street Fighter. If there's one thing that people love, it's when beloved franchises cross over, and in 1992, comic book legends Frank Miller and Walt Simonson teamed up to create a dream rivalry between two robotic 1980s cinema icons.
He's a cyborg, you idiot!
Over the course of 4 issues, the worlds of RoboCop and the Terminator would merge through an original story, which would go on to influence one of the Sega Mega Drive's goriest games. Plans for a RoboCop vs the Terminator movie have been the source of constant rumours throughout the 90s, although it's not known for sure if Frank Miller's screenplay was ever considered for a big screen adaptation. In the comic, Skynet is all but victorious in its war against humanity. Resistance fighter Florence Flo Lander hacks into Skynet's system and learns that Skynet became self-aware due to contact with RoboCop. Flo travels back in time to kill Alex Murphy before he's gunned down and transformed into RoboCop, but she arrives too late. Nonetheless, she hunts down RoboCop and kills him, altering the future which, in the comics, shows the machines see the new future forming before their very robotic eyes, with landscapes turning green and the skies turning blue. In a final desperate act, Skynet sends 3 Terminators back to eliminate Flo before she can kill RoboCop. And while they fail to kill Flo, they prevent her from destroying RoboCop, ensuring a future where the machines are victorious. However, RoboCop decides to protect Flo, and the 3 Terminators attempt to take him by force to merge him with Skynet, but are defeated in a vicious battle with RoboCop, Flo and Ed 209. Realising that this will never be over as long as he's alive, RoboCop stays true to his prime directives, protecting the innocent, sacrificing himself by walking into a metal grinder at the steel mill. Once again though, as the fabric of their reality melts around them, Skynet sends 2 more Terminators back to prevent RoboCop from taking his own life, this time in the guise of a small child and his dog. Unfortunately for RoboCop, the Terminators have returned shortly after his victory over the previous ones, which means that he's severely damaged and missing his left arm. Despite putting up a strong fight, RoboCop is defeated and his head is severed before being connected to Skynet. Flo attempts to rescue RoboCop but is killed. The Terminators seem at odds with RoboCop protecting the flesh, the derogatory term that they use for humans in the comic, while calling RoboCop the creator. RoboCop copies his mind into Skynet's network, replicating himself multiple times over the decades to avoid being detected and erased, acting like a virus, a computerised version of the human soul. RoboCop waits for a single opportunity, looking for a flaw, and finds one in the Terminator factory. RoboCop then uses the Terminator factory to build himself a new body, and takes off to help humanity in their war against the machines. RoboCop interfaces with Skynet using his data spike and commands the Terminators to self-destruct and die, saving humanity, but too late to save Flo, who dies in RoboCop's arms. Determined to end things once and for all, and to right the wrongs of Flo's death, RoboCop travels back in time once more, flying into space to destroy Skynet before it even becomes self-aware. Issue 4 closes with Flo waking in a garden on a beautiful summer's day, thinking about the strange dream that she just had. We cut back to RoboCop in his own timeline. Normality resumed, humanity saved, back on duty in old Detroit. The Mega Drive version of RoboCop vs the Terminator was developed by Virgin Interactive and published by Virgin Games, who had paid $2 million for the license according to lead designer John Botti. The game was developed at Virgin at the same time as Disney's Aladdin, with Botti and his colleague Tim Williams taking influence from Contra 3 for the gunplay in RoboCop vs the Terminator. The game used Dave Perry's Mega Drive engine, which was used in the likes of Cool Spot and Global Gladiators, but with some extra enhancements from Botti's own skill set. The amount of gore in the Mega Drive version of RoboCop vs the Terminator was beyond anything seen on the console at that point, with John Botti recalling that both he and Tim Williams were in their early 20s and just wanted as much blood and gore in the game as possible, likely to respect the R-rated source material. Electronic Gaming Monthly awarded the Mega Drive version of the game the title of Bloodiest Game of 1993. While the Mega Drive version of the game is the more playable and grittier of the two, the Super Nintendo version actually stays faithful to the comic book story, whereas the Mega Drive version adopts its own twist on the plot. The Super Nintendo version is cleverly broken up with recreations of scenes from the comic book, helping to tell the story, but also slowing the game down. The Mega Drive version's story is nowhere near as complicated as the comic, and if anything is pretty rushed, but it does the job. In the Mega Drive game, Sak NORAD contacts Cyberdyne to build Skynet, and they use RoboCop's technology to do it. When Skynet becomes self-aware and attacks humanity, it sends Terminators back to destroy the Resistance. RoboCop destroys one of these Terminators and heads to OCP headquarters, defeating more Terminators in the process before taking out a Skynet reprogrammed Ed 209. RoboCop interacts with a terminal at OCP, unwittingly giving Skynet all the information it needs, and RoboCop then sets out to destroy Skynet. In terms of visuals, both versions have their own unique style, and both have some things that I wish I could merge into one game. For example, the Mega Drive version has all the gore, but the Super Nintendo version has the comic book accurate story via cutscenes. The Mega Drive has an incredibly accurate sound effect for Murphy's Auto 9 gun.
That fucking gun!
But the Super Nintendo version has the iconic sound of Murphy's feet hitting the ground while walking. I mean, that sound announced Murphy's return to the audience at the start of RoboCop 2. Where the Mega Drive version wins though is the overall look and feel of the game. It's dark, it's gloomy, and you can feel the grit and edginess of old Detroit soaking through the screen, left to rot at the hands of OCP and their Delta City project. Combine all of that with the fast-paced arcade gameplay and we have a clear winner. RoboCop vs the Terminator is a run-and-gun platform game, and while platforming may not be something you associate with RoboCop, the game mechanics work surprisingly well. As mentioned in the previous segment, the plot in the Mega Drive version differs to the comics, but the basic premise remains the same: save the future by defeating the Terminators and Skynet. RoboCop is represented on screen fantastically. His sprite is incredibly detailed and he stalks the screen menacingly with his customary pose, Auto 9 in hand. Likewise, the T-800s look brilliant, complete with glowing red eyes, with villains from RoboCop's first two movies popping up as in-game bosses, namely Ed 209 and Kane.
Behave yourselves!
In terms of movement, RoboCop can aim in all 8 directions using the D-pad and carry 2 weapons at once, swapped in and out by using the A button. The rate of fire in the game depends on how many bullets are on screen at once, John Botti and Tim Williams taking influence from Contra 3 The Alien Wars with its on-screen capacity of 10 bullets. And while there's no shot rate limit, the rate is controlled by the number of bullets on screen at once. If there's one thing the original RoboCop movie is known for though, it's gore. Director Paul Verhoeven made the movie so violent that it underwent several cuts in order just to get an R rating. So it's great to see that there's no watering down of the violence in RoboCop vs the Terminator. And while in later levels your enemies are primarily of a mechanical nature, in earlier levels there are human villains who explode in a manner that Verhoeven himself would be proud of.
Ooh, guns, guns, guns!
There are 8 weapons for RoboCop to use during the game, and as I said, 2 can be carried at once. You start the game with RoboCop's classic Auto 9, which by the way sounds absolutely brilliant, perfectly capturing the tone and weight of the gun in the movie. Throughout the game you'll come across a grenade launcher, a bazooka, homing missiles, a flamethrower, Ed 209's Gatling gun, a laser gun and a plasma rifle, and you'll need that plasma rifle come the final levels to cut down the waves of T-800s that swarm at Murphy. Health pickups are also scattered around the levels, with a RoboCop head granting players an extra life, as well as a shield that gives players temporary invulnerability, and food jars that replenish either 25, 50 or 100% of RoboCop's health.
Tastes like baby food.
Level design is also solid, with Detroit, Delta City and the futuristic bowels of Skynet perfectly represented. Likewise, the enemy Terminators are fantastically animated, and the game presents a serious challenge to any gamer due to its difficulty level. Thankfully, there are level skip codes as well as a cheat to start the game with 54 lives. And trust me, to see everything the game has to offer, you'll probably need them. RoboCop vs the Terminator is undoubtedly one of the Mega Drive's best and goriest games. Graphically impressive with challenging gameplay, but it's also a reminder of what could and should have been. It's a tragedy that we never got to see these two characters battle it out on the big screen, but if you've got a Mega Drive and a copy of the game, it's the next best thing. The comic is one I absolutely recommend, especially for fans of RoboCop. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at RoboCop vs the Terminator. Thank you so much for watching. This has been James the SEGAHolic of the Sega Guys, and until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
I'll buy that!